So what we found was that doing a taste test with 2-star Michelin chefs, a blind taste test, the real organic blueberries were easily at the top. The middle were conventional soil grown, and a distant last place were hydroponic organic from Mexico and Peru. There was no question about it. These guys sat around the kitchen, and the first question they asked was, well, which one's the worst? And that was very easy. All the hands went up. Okay, number 1 and number 6. Well, those are the 2 hydro ones. When we sent them out for pesticide testing, the Peruvian one came back clean. The conventional ones, as you would expect, had fungicides and pesticides, other pesticides on them. And the dirtiest one of all was the Mexican hydroponic organic from Mexico, by far. And we have some pesticide experts here who can I've been told by them that some of the stuff on those were actually things you really should worry about.
Welcome to the Real Organic Podcast. I'm Linley Dixon, co-director of the Real Organic Project. We're a grassroots, farmer-led movement with an add-on organic label that distinguishes food grown in healthy soil and animals raised on well-managed pasture, without synthetic fertilizers or toxic chemicals. You just heard from farmer Hugh Kent, addressing the crowd at Churchtown Dairy this past September. Hugh shared how he and his wife Lisa turned their painful marketing situation around by choosing to direct market their soil-grown blueberries, rather than work with corrupt blueberry brokers and wholesalers. It's a story of refusing to give in to the power of the monopolies and hydroponic organics. It's about integrity, resilience, and courage, and there is new data presented showing high levels of pesticides on imported organic blueberries. A quick note that if you're able to watch this talk on our YouTube channel, you'll get to enjoy all of Hugh's great slides and also appreciate the wonderful space and crowd in the round barn at Churchtown Dairy.
So our next speaker is a farmer, but I got to travel the country for the Real Organic Project in that first year and met so many highly educated farmers. So this farmer also has an economics degree, and he has a law degree from Cornell. So he's has a lot of credentials to be talking about antitrust. And in that first year, when we were trying to figure out what we were going to be called, what our logo was going to be, Hugh Kent just started using the label on his products, and to this day, it kind of looks like a blueberry. So Hugh and Lisa Kent farm those famous blueberries in King Grove Farm in Florida, and Hugh Kent's going to be talking today about how he saved his farm through direct marketing.
I'm looking forward to getting to the positive part that Austin Frerick just ended with, but it's going to take me a little while to get there. So if you'll forgive me, we'll go through some uncomfortable realities first. And one of them is that if you want free and fair markets, if you want the free market that our political leaders tend to revere in their public comments, you actually have to have some regulation on it. Free markets and unregulated markets are not the same thing. If markets are entirely unregulated, we end up with things like what we're seeing now. Monopolies, oligopolies, price fixing, restraints on trade, racketeering. That's what's allowed to gain a foothold in totally unregulated markets. So when we talk about that kind of thing in agriculture, it looks a little bit different. But that's really my message for today, is that if we want all of the good things that free and fair competition bring us, we need to have some regulation, and it needs to be fairly and evenly applied. And I'm going to tell you a personal story. My wife and Lisa and I are introverts, and we do this nervously and with some apprehension, but I think the best way to illustrate the way that antitrust problems are manifest in the agricultural industry is to tell you the story of our farm. And we farm blueberries on 20 acres in the middle of land that we steward, which is woodlands, wetlands, and wildlife around our farm. But the active crop is 20 acres of blueberries. To give you an idea of the scale, that's a medium-scale farm. I do believe that what J.M. Fortier has been able to do and what he promotes is the gold standard for agriculture. But for some of us, we strive for kind of a silver standard because we don't live in communities that support us to the extent that J.M. does and he's been able to create. And if we live in areas that don't have that kind of community, we have to reach out to a larger community. And we may have to do something like Lisa and I chose to do, which is to be wholesale farmers. So that means as a medium-scale farm, we can't survive going to farmers markets. A farm our size, if we put all the rows together, would be about 17 miles, and there's a plant every 2.5 feet. And we produce somewhere between 250,000 and 500,000 of those little plastic clamshells you're used to seeing in the store. That's not something we can, in about an 8 to 10 week period. So that's not something that we can sell in farmers markets. We have to go to the wholesale market. So that was what we conceived of from the beginning. We're going to be small wholesale farmers. So we started out with all sorts of hope and optimism, and there's our farm when we first planted it. And we were committed to organic agriculture. We learned as best we could from a lot of the people in this room, and we developed a system that's worked very well. You know, as far as our production goes, we're very pleased with it, and from maybe 2 or 3 years in, we had figured it out pretty well. We grew a good crop, and we concentrated on stewardship of our soil, as real organic farmers do. And it's a productive system. We have regularly produced higher yields than the average conventional farms in Florida. So then the question became, well, how do we sell this product that we think is very valuable and healthy food for people? And so we went into the wholesale market. And I'd like to explain to you how this works. And please keep in mind, this is just an illustration that I'm making using blueberries, but of course I could do this with tomatoes, I could do it with peppers, greens, herbs. There's many crops I could do this, apply the same story to. And farmers are basically manufacturers, and we understand what our costs are. We understand what it takes to create our widgets, but we're not allowed to set the price. This is really a unique thing in the business world. Wholesale farmers are not able to say, this is what we will accept for our product, for the price of our product, and will you buy it? Will you sign a contract? None of the stores will do that. None of them. They won't even give you any kind of letter of commitment. They really won't even give you a verbal commitment. And now the consolidation has reached such a point that they won't even talk to you. They won't deal with you. They will deal only with these middlemen. These are marketers. The marketers do not take title to the crop. They don't take any risk. They don't do much work. They carry a phone around in their pocket. And they ask you to sign contracts where you don't get to see who they sold the product to, how much they sold it for. And in the end of the season, they give you a statement which says, here's what we say we sold it for, minus our commission that you agreed to, and maybe we'll see you next year. So I collected a bunch of these contracts. That's an example of one of them on the screen. They're all the same, all the same. None of them will allow you to establish even a floor on the price. Not at all. Every one of them has the same language. They will set the price. You will not complain about it. You have some PACA rights. You have some federal rights under the PACA laws. You waive most of those under these contracts also. And these are take it or leave it. So after doing this for 3 years and receiving pittances at the end of the year, Lisa and I realized this was a great way to go out of business. And we said, no, we're not signing that. I'm sorry, I can't sign that. We need some sort of commitment on a minimum price. Well, sorry, good luck selling your blueberries, Mr. Kent. So that's what we did, or we tried to do. So we created our own label, and we hit the pavement. And the limits of time and basic believability keep me from telling you what that was like, But you cannot be even a medium-scale farmer and get into any of the stores in this country at the moment. Even the ones that put on their websites they will only deal with farmers, they will not deal with middlemen. It's not true. They have 1 or 2 buyers out in California. They won't talk to you unless you can provide them with berries throughout the domestic season, which means you'd have to have a farm in Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, New Jersey, Michigan, and the Pacific Northwest, so that you can supply them throughout the entire year. Otherwise, they won't talk to you. There was, in 2000, well, a few years ago, Whole Foods was an exception, and we sold to Whole Foods for 6 years. And each year, they wanted a little less, and each year they required a price cut. For 6 years, we got less and less money selling blueberries to them. When they were purchased by Amazon, that pretty much ended the relationship. They weren't interested in the amount of volume that we could produce. We had built our way up to being the exclusive supplier for their Southeast Distribution Center, which meant that everything that we produced in that window, they would take all of their needs from our farm while we had fruit to sell them, and we sold maybe a third to a half of our crop to them for 1 year there. Then that disappeared. So we were wondering why the prices were so low. And I'm sorry, we all know who Big Blueberry is. Probably shouldn't have worked Violet Beauregard into my presentation 2 years in a row, but it may have won a little bit of money. And we saw a different type of blueberry entering the market, also labeled as a organic blueberry, but it was a very different production system. This is a farm exactly the same size as ours, and it's plastic hoop houses over plastic. So the field was laser leveled and compacted, and plastic was placed over every square inch of it, which makes it unsuitable for farming, of course. And then plastic pots placed on it, and a substrate of some kind put in the pots, little IV tubes providing the fertigation into the plastic pots, covered with plastic hoop houses. There's the IV tubes. So it's a big plastic sandwich. And USDA organic, right? That's one of their blueberries. That's the packaging, USDA organic. This is one of our blueberries, our packaging, indistinguishable on the shelf. Both say the same thing. The consumer or customer would say, well, give me the cheaper one. And this is now the predominant system throughout the world. This is Central and South American system, and it's evolved a little bit. Those are grow bags, those plastic bags. That's coir, coconut husks that come from Sri Lanka around the world to lay on top of plastic weed mat. They're rehydrated. They're compressed to about a fifth of their size for shipping into these bricks, and then they're rehydrated. They fill up the bag. A plant is placed in there, and the fertigation tubes are placed in, and there you have an instant organic farm. The USDA's position is that this is the soil, that coir, that coconut husks that come from Sri Lanka. And so if you don't put any unapproved substances in there, that's organic. So I would argue that defies the law that the USDA is supposed to uphold. That's why they exist. The NOP exists to enforce the law. That's their job. So the law is very specific about what we're supposed to do. Maybe 50 some odd references to soil stewardship. And I'll get to the really specific violations in a minute. But the general one is plain, I think, to any thinking person. We're supposed to maintain or improve the physical, hydrological, and biological features of a production operation, including soil, water, wetlands, woodlands, and wildlife. So if we go through this really quick, that's the kind of thing a real organic blueberry farm does. The soil is the focus of all of our work, most of our work. This is the soil in what is USDA organic blueberry farms that produce the vast majority of blueberries, organic blueberries on the shelf. Rain, water, So when we irrigate or it rains on our farm, the water goes down through a very clean operation. It goes through, in our case, 100 foot of sand, big sand filter basically, till it hits the static water table. And I would argue it's cleaner when it gets down there than it was than when we started with. I'm not sure what happens with the rainwater that falls on farms like this. Pretty sure they run off very quickly. If they don't, they leach through the plastic, and the plastic leachates get into the groundwater at some point. Wetlands. We manage our wetlands in part because we want to create as much life as we can, not just below ground, but above ground. That is the primary focus of our pest control program, is to have a nursery for all of the beneficials. I believe almost everything is beneficial if it's in balance with the rest of the farming operation. So we have ephemeral wetlands which allow a nursery for all kinds of beneficials that you can actually see. That's the wetland for that farm. It's the receiving pond down there at the bottom, which receives leachates and whatever fertigation elements are not taken up by the plants. Woodlands, same kind of thing. Managing woodlands as part of our farming system, as we're required to do in the law. And woodlands, I have nothing to show you here. Wildlife, same. It's very much a part of our farming system to try and achieve this ecological balance. Again, here, I'm not really, maybe some of these. I hope you weren't expecting any new jokes. It's only been a year. So in a more direct and indefensible way, here are the specific language that's being violated. And I can't quite read that. All right. For a farm to be certified under this chapter, producers on such farms shall not use plastic mulches unless such mulches are removed at the end of each growing or harvest season. And I would point out, this is not a regulation that the USDA promulgated. This is actually the federal statute. So this wording predates the work that the USDA did. They have a very similar language. I can show you 205, 206, 7 CFR 205, 206. That's the equivalent language that reflects this in the USDA's regulations. It says basically the same thing. But this is a higher order law. This is passed by Congress. It would take an act of Congress to change this. You cannot do this. It's prohibited unless these ground covers, these mulches, are removed at the end of each growing or harvest season. It's a totally illegal system. Now, there's an exception here if you remove it, and that's a carve-out for the vegetable guys. And there's all kinds of good reasons for them to have that. It makes a lot of sense. It's a different kind of plastic. It's a whole different discussion. But it's irrelevant here. We're talking about a perennial crop, and it says, you can't do this, right? Well, how do you think the USDA gets around this? Their position is that the NOP, they say a growing season is the lifetime of the plant. So if it's a blueberry plant, 15 years, growing season, maybe, I don't know, tree with 30 years or something. What kind of farmer would believes a growing season is defined as 15 years? What kind of layperson on the street would not laugh in your face if you said, yeah, we have a 15-year growing season? But that's the level to which they're torturing their own laws rather than abiding by their own laws. So this is what we're up against. And this is the foundation for this organic blueberry system, which operates in Central and South America and is now producing most of our blueberries. You've seen some other pictures of the scale of these kind of things. They're enormous. They fill valleys, entire valleys. Okay, and so what are the consequences? This one's really sobering. So if you look at the top graph, let's start with the bottom one. See, this one's too far away and this one's too close. But I don't need reading glasses. All right, it doesn't really matter. One of them is a comparison of Michigan and Peru, and the other one is Florida and Mexico. And the little bar graphs at the bottom, that's the domestic production. So I believe the top one is Michigan. And it's a big, it used to be a big blueberry producing state. And there's where they are sort of petering out. And that nearly vertical line is Peru. This was coming into this country. And then in the bottom, there's the Florida industry in yellow. And Mexico is that nearly vertical line going up. And these are, excuse me, this is 2022 data. So for some reason, we haven't been able to they're not publishing the data for 2023, 2024, 2025. I think you can guess from the shape of those lines what it looks like now. So I'm not sure what our policymakers are thinking, but I think this is also a national security issue. We're not growing our own food. No, and by the way, those were conventional farms. Those two graphs, that Michigan and Florida, Mexico and Peru, that's a collection of both organic and conventional, because these guys that are growing in Central and South America and they're bringing in all this organic crop, they're driving down prices for conventional also. Why should I buy your conventional if organic is this cheap? You got to be below that. So these are conventional farms, soil-grown, soil-based conventional farms in this country that are going out of business also. And if you look at these lines, the blue one, excuse me, is how much of our fruit we are importing, and the bottom line is vegetables. And I don't know if I've never come across any kind of a USDA press release where they haven't told me that we're feeding the world. But I don't know what kind of gaslight they're reading their statistics by, but these are USDA graphs also. I didn't make these up. This is USDA data. And as of the year this stopped being reporting, we are now importing more than 40% of the vegetables we consume in this country. We're not feeding ourselves. We're not coming close to feeding ourselves. We're importing more than 60% of the fruit that we consume in this country. Okay, so we see these production systems, and we got curious about them because we've been told that our berries taste very different than these hydroponic berries that are taking over. And we think they taste different for a number of different reasons, how they're grown. And we think their nutritional value probably reflects their flavor also. We've noticed quality of food, like all of us have, has just been spiraling down. Excuse me. So we decided to do some testing with the support of the Real Organic Project. And we tested for flavor. And I'm going to be talking about this as soon as I'm done talking here. But I do want to let you know basically what happened when we took a very small sample, which was we tested for flavor, we tested for pesticide residues, and we tested for plastics residues. Looking at these farms and thinking, oh my God, there's got to be some plastic residues going somewhere, certainly into the groundwater down in those areas where they're being grown like that. But we suspect maybe even into the food. So what we found was that doing a taste test with 2-star Michelin chefs, a blind taste test, the Real Organic blueberries were easily at the top. The middle were conventional soil grown, and a distant last place were hydroponic organic from Mexico and Peru. There was no question about it. These guys sat around the kitchen, and the first question they asked was, well, which one's the worst? And that was very easy. All the hands went up. Okay, number 1 and number 6. Yep, those were the 2 hydro ones. When we sent them out for pesticide testing, the Peruvian one came back clean. The conventional ones, as you would expect, had fungicides and pesticides, other pesticides on them. And the dirtiest one of all was the Mexican hydroponic organic from Mexico, by far. And we have some pesticide experts here who can I've been told by them that some of the stuff on those were actually things you really should worry about. And I think maybe that justifies some more testing. Certainly the USDA is not doing it, and maybe this is an organization that can do something like that as a pilot program and potentially as something that would apply to all of the certified ROP farms. So here's the optimistic part of the program. I should have given a little more time, but I'll blow through it quickly. Lisa and I realized it was a complete dead end. There's no way we were going to get into the wholesale markets and survive. So we said, well, we're too big a farm. We can't sell direct to people. Well, but we did. We did. And over a 5-year period, we went from 100% wholesale to this last year, 100% retail directly to people. Now, and it was largely as a result of support from this movement. And then it branched out. And we now have customers who care about all kinds of things from flavor to nutrition to environmental stewardship. But it really started here. It starts here with support of this group. We had no expertise. We did not lay out the farm that way. We had no plans to do it. We didn't know how to run something like that. There's really just 2 of us working on it without a whole lot of resources. Everything done from scratch, everything done on the fly. And it can be done. As we watch food get commoditized and the quality gets worse and worse, the opportunities for selling direct to people who care are getting greater and greater every day. So we created our own little packing system, believing that fresh air and sunshine is the greatest sanitizer, and it's the nicest place to work. We did not use the model that packing houses for berries use commercially, which is like a meat packing place. It's recirculated, refrigerated air. We felt vindicated when COVID hit right then. Everybody, actually every year, even when there isn't a pandemic, everybody working in that 55-degree environment with recirculated air gets sick. None of our people get sick. Lisa gets a 100% on food safety every year. We do all of our own packing right on the farm. We do the refrigeration on the farm. We have sort of like the masters, you get the green jacket. This is our best performing person of the week wearing the coveted pink, go into the cooler, stay nice and warm jacket. He wins all the time, unfortunately. So this is the little facility we built, and we ship directly out of there. We take a truck to UPS, and we unload right into their system, and everything is delivered by UPS. And I would argue this may be a more efficient way of selling and transporting than we used to use. We used to sell to a restaurant, for example, and it would go through several hands. We would have to package them up in those plastic clamshells to satisfy the distributor. It would go on less than full load trucks. The doors would open, they would close, they go all over the place. They go to a distribution center, they go to another one. They finally get to the restaurant. The guys would take all of this plastic and throw it in the dumpster as they emptied each one of those things out to get a pile of berries that they could use. So we sell to people now for food service. We sell to professional sports teams that want the nutritional quality. And there's our product leaving our farm. Nobody touches it except for us and the people who eat it. And we've learned over the years, those are the only people who really care about quality. And I think that I think this is very significant. Well, this is just an illustration of what we did. So we started there. The blue is our direct to our retail customers, and really in just 5 years we went from a small percentage up to 100%. The applause is for you. The applause is for you. And this is a really interesting graph. This is people who've bought groceries using e-commerce. This was for July last month. The August one looks even more impressive. We didn't have time to get it on there, but those 3 represent direct, pickup, and ship to home. This is the people who compile this data. That's the labels they use. So direct is when Instacart or somebody delivers it to your home. Pickup is when you go to the store and you pick up a pre-order. Ship to home is what we do. So the one on the far right, that's what we do, the little red one that's growing quickly. They're all growing quickly. This is exploding. But that's 1.6 billion in 1 month that was shipped to home, the same kind of work that we do. This is very, very viable. And I would argue that until we get the wholesale system straightened out, this is the way that we can feed our families healthy food, and it's the way good farms can keep going. So I don't know if this is the last time I'll address you as a farmer. I think Lisa and I maybe we'll have a harvest in the spring, but we're getting near the end of the road for ourselves. But we certainly look forward to passing on, along with you, everything we've learned, and we think that, again, we would like to be a resource for anybody who would like to try what we've done. And thank you again for helping us so much, and we hope to do the same for the movement.
Thank you for listening to the Real Organic Podcast. If you have a spare minute today, the single most effective way you can help us grow this movement and others to find this podcast is by leaving us a rating and a review wherever you listen to our podcast. You can find a video version of this interview on our website or on our YouTube channel, and you can join us every Sunday for a new episode featuring voices from the organic movement. And if you haven't already, please sign up for our weekly newsletter at realorganicproject.org/email. See you next time.